despite the fact that we've had massive increase in technology, Keynes' prediction that his grandkids would work 15-hour weeks has been massively wrong. So why is it that despite increase in technology, we see, in many cases, neither improved living standards nor reduced working hours? The answer is because of inequality. So let's talk about how improved technology works in an equal society. And I think it's important to recognize that when economists talk about technology and how it affects an economy, it's important to recognize that the vast majority of economic models used by economists implicitly assume a perfectly equal society. So in a perfectly equal society, we all own our share of the productive resources. So you own a big chunk of the AI, and you own a big chunk of the factories, and you own your own home, and you own some of the farmland, and you own some of the energy production facilities. And you're relatively self-sufficient in like your ownership of resources. A new technology comes out, fantastic, you're more productive, and you have a choice of like, well, how do I respond to my increased productivity? Do I work more because now I can make more money with my increased work? Or do I work less because I don't need to work so much? You know, have a choice. Like, how do I use this like windfall? Like, do I use it to get more money, or do I use it to get more leisure time? But when we have a very unequal society, which, you know, we are moving into, what that means is the resources, the natural resources like the food and the energy and the productive facilities that turn these things into energy that you need, but also, most obviously, that the buildings and the houses are all owned by a small super wealthy elite. You know, that's the case in very unequal societies. You know, we're not quite there yet, but we're going in that direction. In this situation, work plays like a very important role, which is when you have a small group of people that own all the assets, and also they own the debt, so your government is in debt to them, you maybe are in debt to them with your mortgage or your student debt. Every week, every month, every year, you need to pay them a significant amount of money because you need to access those resources. You need to eat food, you need to live in a house, so you've got to pay rent or mortgage, your government is in debt to them, maybe you're in debt to them, so you've got to pay interest, you've got to pay them for access to energy, you've got to pay them for access to transport because they own all of these things. When you have a very unequal society, the majority of people have to pay every week, every month money to the rich. And how are you able to pay them that money when you do not have any resources yourself? The answer is, the way the system is balanced is work. Work plays a very crucial function in an unequal society. Work is how you balance your basically like from birth debt to the rich. You're born where you own nothing, they're born there and everything. The only way for you to get access to the resources that you need and they own is you have to work for them. And what this means is, if you have a sudden increase in technology, especially if that technology is owned by them, you cannot respond by working less. Because if you choose to work less, how do you pay your mortgage? How do you pay your rent? How do you buy food? These guys own these things and they need you to work for them. Well, you need to work for them, otherwise they're not going to give you access to these things. And I think really, when we want to discuss the question of will improved technology, will AI liberate us, like John Maynard Keynes wanted it to, like to some degree I think it did and it has since World War II, or will it enslave us like it did for those workers in the early industrial revolution, you know, here in Britain who were forced to work in terrible conditions, you know, in factories, in terrible, unsafe cities, like it did to the people in India who lost their jobs and starved to death, and the people in Ireland and in many countries around the world. Really, it is quite simply a question of who owns the technology. It's a simple question of that. And I think history, any real close look at history will show us that this naive reading of don't worry about it, it's going to be fine, like time heals all wounds, is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly naive.